for those of you guys that don't know who Will is, okay, I know a lot of you guys that follow First Phorm. This is, first of all, one of my best friends. He's on the board of our company, okay? He's a self-made guy, came in, started working at us, how many years ago?
2013, so this is 8 and a little bit of change.
Yeah, and when you started, you were a minimum wage guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so he started as a minimum wage guy, has built a career here at First Phorm. He's an executive here at First Phorm, literally started from the bottom. Is one of the most incredible dudes that you could ever meet for a lot of different reasons. Also one of the toughest guys. And before we get into 75 hard, I want to talk about one of the toughest fucking things I've ever witnessed in humanity. And you know what I'm going to talk about, but
yeah.
You guys, so one day now we'll get into this, but you weren't an exceptional, like gifted endurance athlete, right?
No, not at all. I mean, I grew up a fat kid, and the very first time that my mom made me, start running or being active to try to lose weight, like I cried. Like my legs chafed so hard and like just from a mile that I cried. And I was like, nope, this running thing ain't for me. So, definitely not gifted.
So you weren't one of these guys who's just cross country guy and a great athlete and all these things.
No. I mean, the only running experience I had was after I lost 50 pounds. I mean, a lot of that I was running like 3 miles a day. Yeah. A little bit of freshman year track, but that's about it.
So you grew up a fat kid.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So guys, just so you understand, Will's not a little guy. He's a big muscular guy. He's not like a real thin guy. This dude just decides, and why this is relevant, okay, it's because usually these runners all are kind of the same build. They're smaller guys, they're built for running. Okay. Will's not built for running. Will's built for like being a super soldier or something. I don't know what it is. But anyhow, this dude just decides one day. Tell him what you decided.
Yeah. So about 8 months ago, decided on a Thursday around 1:00 in the afternoon that the next day I was going to wake up and run 100 miles in under 24 hours. And I was going to run laps around the building until I got it done. So,
and what happened?
That's what I did. 19 hours and 45 minutes later, got it done.
19 hours straight. He ran 100 miles in laps around our headquarters. And I watched him. Okay. It took me like 3 hours to figure out what was going on, because when I got to work that day, I saw him running. And then I left later to go do something, and he was still running. And it was like way long of a time to where you shouldn't have still been running.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, what the fuck is Will doing? And the guys are like, oh, he's running 100 miles. And I'm like, holy shit. Bro, let's talk about that before we can get into 75 hard, because I want people to understand, like, what was that like? And what inspired you? Like what, because dude, I know you, and not these guys listening, they don't know you at all, but I know that was a test for you.
Yeah.
That's what that was about.
Absolutely. And really, the message that I want people to, kind of take away from it is I didn't even, post about it or that I was going to do it, because it was 100% for me. And really what it was, living up to the, the words that we talk about of leading by example and always pushing yourself. Mm-hmm. And, over the last 4 years, I had started to dabble in a little bit of running, not consistently, but using it as a test, because it's 100% you and your mind, right? Like your bike can't fail. You have no one else to depend on you. No one else knows how hard you actually went, but you know. So when you get done with a run, okay, you have to be honest with yourself. Was that your best, or did you just kind of half-ass it? And people can celebrate it and, oh my God, you did so great. But at the end of the day, and so for me, it was, if I'm going to tell people that they need to go out and constantly push themselves, and we talk about finding your limits or pushing past your limits, I hadn't found that. And so that's what this run was about for me. And, I started with, running my first half marathon. And at the time, it was scary. I hadn't run anything over a 5K. And I was like, man, we got to go 4 times that distance. I got 30 days to prepare. I did that. And, I did well at it. But the next couple of days, I was wrecked. And I was like, okay, built my confidence a little bit. Hey, I can do hard things. And then about a year went by, and I hadn't really pushed myself in that way, and really getting mentally uncomfortable. So I was like, all right, marathon it is. And I went out and I ran a marathon and did really well with that. And 2 weeks later, because Sal challenged me, he's like, dude, you're 5 minutes away from the Boston Marathon time. Like, just if you can do it, I'll go with you. So I went out and I ran another marathon. And then that built my confidence because that was the first time when I realized that like when push comes to shove, I am mentally tough enough to give it everything I have and accomplish my goal. Because I only beat the cutoff by like 13 seconds, had to be wheelchaired off the, the finish line.
Yeah.
Like I was literally destroyed. But I did it. And, that sense of confidence in finding, that place past what I thought my limits were, became something I was pursuing, and you talk about it all the time of like pursuing, your potential, whatever that is. And so I had a new threshold. And then it was, okay, I'm gonna do a 50K trail run, 32 miles. And then from there is when I was like, the first thought of like, I bet I could run 100 miles in 24 hours. And instantly I was like, no, you can't.
Now you got to do it.
Yeah. And I was like, nah, you can't do that. That's insane. Why would you do that? Who could do that? And it's like, no, you could do it. And as soon as, like you said, as I started debating it, it was like, well, I'm gonna have to test this theory.
Yeah.
And so we did. And I went for it actually 4 months earlier and made it about 70 miles before my body completely shut down, which was twice as far as I'd ever ran in my life. And, that's where Sal had to come pick me up off the road, take me home. I was shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't move.
And hypothermia.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a really bad spot. And then 4 months later, it weighed on me that whole 4 months, looking at, okay, I found my limit physically, but mentally I was still like, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't run in between, I ran 3 times, 3 miles just cause we got suckered into some workouts around here. And then, finally on that Thursday, it just hit me and I was like, fuck it. I'm running it tomorrow morning. And, showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning, got out of my truck and started running. And 19 hours and 45 minutes later, it was done.
So, dude, first of all, that's incredible, man. Like, I hope you guys can appreciate how big of a mental feat that is, not just physical. I mean, there's lots of people that train to run these ultra distance runs and they run 100 miles or even longer, 200 miles, right? There's guys that are running these huge races and they train for these races, right? Like sometimes for even years to get to this point. And what Will did was he just said, hey, I'm going to go see how far I can go, and went out and fucking started running. So like, I hope you could appreciate how big of a mental test that is. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever been able to witness. And I'm not surprised that you were able to accomplish it at all. Dude, what were some of the conversations that you had? Like, dude, I know how my conversations are when I'm doing shit that just sucks. Because there had to have been points during that run that sucked. Like, for real. That I know there's zones of momentum and you kind of go this other place and then you're, 40 minutes from where you were. Right. And then you get into these zones where every step is complete agony and complete willful intent and grit and guts. So what were some of the conversations like that happened during those times?
Yeah. So a lot of conversations.
Like the internal conversation.
Yeah. And another thing I want to note is I ran it with no headphones, right? No music, no podcast, because I wanted to have those conversations.
Detail.
And you can't distract yourself then. So it's like, all right, well, you're by yourself with your thoughts and figure it out. And so, a lot of it was, thinking about obviously, well, once again, no one else knows that I'm doing this, right? And when you're running, and you kind of have those times of momentum, but I had a specific goal, right? And I think the biggest thing that people can learn from this is the whole time, my mind was trying to tell me that, well, you don't really need to maybe hit that exact goal, right? Like when things got tough, it was, well, maybe you don't have to do it in 24 hours because if you slowed down a little bit, you could definitely cover the distance, right? Well, no one else knows that you're really running 100, so you could just, stop at 50 and, it'd be a good run and go out with friends and do whatever you want. And so the whole time it's your brain, or my brain at least, was looking for reasons and justifications to just let off the gas, right? And once again, that's what I like about running specifically is because, if you let off the gas, you stop, right? Like there's no momentum of a wheel. There's no team to pick you up, right? Like if you let off the gas, it's between you and yourself because nobody else knows how you feel in that moment. And for me, it was that constant battle of like every step of like, I'm going to run my pace. I'm going to run my pace. I'm going to stick to my game plan. I can't worry about, what's at mile 60. I'm still on mile 7 and it's dark and it's cold and we're going to figure this thing out. Right. And focused on running like that mile. And then it became running that straightaway. And then it became just run to that little crack in the freaking sidewalk or whatever and make a left-hand turn, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever I had to do, because like you're right, it was up, it was down, it was all around. And then I could tell you the last 10, it was just pure suck. There was no more momentum.
Every fucking step.
Yeah. It fucking hurt.
Yeah. Dude, so you guys notice what he's talking about there is your bitch voice and your boss voice. Okay. We talk about this a lot in the program. You know, these conversations happen to us, and we're going to get into 75 hard, but I just want to, these conversations happen to us when we're doing anything that's difficult physically. Okay. And this is what gives us the opportunity to grow mentally. All right. These are why these things are so intertwined. And a lot of people think the 75 hard is a physique transformation challenge or some shit, when in reality, it's designed to get you as uncomfortable as you fucking can so that you can take control. First of all, become aware of the conversations like you're talking about, but also be able to navigate them, right? Because the reason that most people end up in a place they don't want to be is because in that conversation that Will's describing, where it's like, oh, well, I could run a 50 and people will still celebrate. It's good enough. That's what most people do with their lives. Okay. So they set out to have 100-miler and they get to 50 and they're like, oh, that's okay. And they let those voices literally create a reality for them in the physical world that wasn't what their intent was, because they let themselves be tricked, by the silver tongue of our own selves, right? Which is the best one for us.
Yeah, exactly. We know exactly what we like.
That's
what we want to hear.
That's right, man. And that's why that's so important to become aware of these conversations. Bro, I mean, like, we could stop the podcast at 16 minutes, and I think people get some good value out of that. But, this is a 75 hard deal, and it's important to know that you started 75 hard after this.
Correct.
Right. So he had already, there's nobody in the world that would argue that that's not one of the mentally toughest things they've ever fucking heard of. Okay. And then he's going to do 75 hard. So I'm really interested to hear what you're going to have to say about it. Hey guys, do me a favor. If you enjoyed that clip, if it made you laugh, if it made you think, if it made you have a new perspective, go over to iTunes. Check out the full-length podcast. You're going to like it.